Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What Ted Says, where it's always time to get a fatter wallet and a bigger net worth. Now, one of the things that I've seen here recently is that there are a lot of business owners that ask this simple question: when should I give away equity in my company? And I have to tell you, being an owner in multiple businesses, have built businesses, and I have sold businesses for more than 8 figures before, it is a very challenging question because your business, it's your baby. Remember when it was nothing and you had no employees and you had no sales? And now one day you have lots of sales, you have lots of employees, and probably a lot of headaches too. But the first place that you need to start is to ask yourself, what is the actual value of my company? Now, valuations can range all over the place. We've seen publicly traded companies like Bumble that went public, and they went public at $7 billion, and they had a $116 million loss. And we've also seen businesses where people will not even pay you 1 times your revenue. So you really need to look at your industry, and it makes sense, even if you pay a nominal fee of $3,000 or $5,000, to have somebody do an independent, industry-focused business valuation so you can figure out your starting point. Is the real street value of your business worth $1 million? Is it worth $5 million? Is it worth $10 million? Because when you're thinking about what kind of equity you're going to give away, it's always good as a baseline to be thinking about how much am I going to give away. In another video, I talked about the concept of investing and that you can only be a loaner or an owner. Well, the same is true when it comes to the equity in your company. When you're trying to build out a structure and thinking about should you give away equity and thinking about those dollars and cents, well, you can either raise money in your company by being a loaner, and that means as simple as going to the bank and getting a straight line of credit. It could be a small business administration loan, or in some cases, they have things that are called venture debt. And this is where people can loan you money and you essentially will pay them back over time off of a product or a royalty or as your revenue grows. When you give away equity, you have to think about the percentage of equity that you want to give away. And this means sometimes that you'll create classes of shares in the company. You may be a Class A share, and the new owners may be a Class B share, because you have to consider whether or not you want those shares to be voting or non-voting. Now, I recommend if you're going to give away equity at all, you're going to want them to be non-voting shares because you don't want to give up the retention of control of how the company is going to be run. And then you have to ask yourself strategically, why am I giving away that equity? Am I giving away that equity because I feel like I'm going to need more people to do marketing to drive sales in the business? Do I need strategic advice from other people that know about my industry? They've sold businesses before and they're going to act as an advisory board? Or am I giving away equity because I want to bring on a real partner in the business? Somebody that could become a COO or a CIO, or someone that's involved in my business that will handle skills that are ancillary to mine. There are things that I can't do right now and they could do in the business better. Now, when you think about this equity, then the question is, what way can I give equity in my company? Now, there's straight equity. Let's say I owned 100% and I brought somebody into the company and I gave them 5% of my company. That's just a straight equity deal. I give them 5%, they're 5% owner in the company. One thing I can also do is something called a phantom stock or a stock at sale agreement, where I'm actually giving them equity in my company, but the equity doesn't actually trigger until the day that I sell my company. So if they're not with my company, they really don't have any equity. And if they're with my company when I sell it, then they do have equity in the company. So you really are giving people an equity opportunity, but they have to see it through with you until the business actually sells. It's really important, if you're thinking about this, that you design the equity in the right way based upon the behaviors and the motivators that you want and what you're trying to do as you're thinking about either exiting or growing in the business. Most importantly is voting. Just remember, when you're 100% owner, there's only one vote. One of the things I would absolutely avoid is having equity where you split it 50-50. It's one of the most dangerous things in my opinion, because as they say, the only ships that sink are partnerships. But I will tell you this, if you go 50-50, make sure in your operating agreements you have something there that basically splits the tie. If you don't have legal language that will tell you what will happen when you split a tie, you're going to have even more legal problems down the road. Let's remember, giving up equity in a business is very, very difficult. And I'm not sure that you want to give up equity at all. But if you have to make this decision, go through a process and understand the real value of the business you own. Try to think about why you're giving away that equity and what motivators or behaviors you want to accomplish for the people that you're actually giving equity to. If you do these things and you align those values and behaviors, the likelihood is you will have a good outcome. I hope you like this episode of What Ted Says. You should absolutely leave me a comment. I'm happy to give you my advice or my opinion if you leave me a message or a comment on What Ted Says. Always click the button subscribe. We've got great stuff in here for business owners and entrepreneurs, investors, and much, much more. And make sure you click that notifications button. That's your episode of What Ted Says.